Hi there, I'm Tim Autrey, and welcome to Principle Based Performance Improvement, where we combine timeless wisdom with modern science and practical tools to help you move yourself and your organization toward better, safer, and more productive outcomes. So we're back over here at the whiteboard now, and we're going to continue our understanding of the individual performance model, and we're going to talk about this part of it right here. So let's go ahead and fill some of this in. So for this line right here, I want you to write in mindset. And this one down here is perception. Let's talk about these right now, and I believe around the top of this is already filled in for you the word personality. Okay, so here's the thing you got to understand. Everything that comes in from the outside world has to pass through here. Now remember, this part of the model up to here is going on inside of you over and over and over and over and over. Stimulus, information, all the stuff from the outside world has to get in here for you to process it, for you to actually make a choice, to take an action and behavior and all of that. So the thing is, anything from the outside world has to pass through these two things before it ever even generates a conscious thought. And it kind of gets a little gray there because some of this could be in the conscious realm, some's in the subconscious realm. We don't need to get that detailed with it. Just remember this. Everything from the outside world must come through these two things before it gets inside your model. Mindset and perception. Now, mindset is our mental amplifier. So it's your general overall attitude or your general overall attitude about something. So let's say, for example, you have a really negative mindset about your job. Every day from the moment you walk in the door, if your mindset's negative, anything that's negative is going to be amplified. You're actually going to be looking for negative stuff. That's your mental amplifier. A good way to think of this one, have you ever had a day when you wake up and you are just in a bad frickin' mood? I mean, it's like you're just, you don't know why, but you're just feeling horrible. You ever had that happen? I know I sure have had days like that. At least they start that way before I change my mindset. So, have you ever had a day like that and you stay in that mindset and you get up and you go to work and you stay at work and you come home and everything that could possibly go wrong goes wrong, everything that could possibly piss you off pisses you off, and you are like, the whole universe is conspiring against you? Well, I got to tell you something. The universe couldn't care less. You're creating this because your mindset, if it's negative, is going to tend to amplify anything that it can possibly find that's negative. It's going to look for stuff that's negative, and you're going to find whatever it is you're looking for. So that's your mental amplifier. Perception, on the other hand, is your mental filter. So perception gets a little more specific about specific things. The thing that's important to understand about perception is my perception of reality is my reality. Your perception of reality is your reality. And if my perception of reality is different than your perception of reality, I'm obviously right and you're obviously wrong. We'll talk more about that in just a moment. Let's say that you work in a company that has never before given any kind of a bonus. You know, the company's performed well, whatever, and they don't, you don't get a bonus, you don't get any share of the profits, you don't get any of that. And there are a lot of companies like that. Well, let's say you've been working for a company like that and there's never been talk of bonuses, there's never been promise, it's not in your contract, it's not in anything. And the company has a really good year. And they recognize that the folks on the team are the ones that are responsible for making this happen. So after all the accounting is finished in January of the following year, first week in February, you get called into a meeting and you're in there with your team and your supervisor or department head or whatever hands out these envelopes. And you open up your envelope and in there is a check made out to you for 10% of your entire previous year's salary. Let me ask you, is your perception of that going to be positive or negative? I could just about guarantee you it's going to be over the moon positive. It wasn't expected, it wasn't anticipated. Son of a gun, 10% of last year's salary, I can go buy that bass boat or whatever, guys, whatever your wife decides you're allowed to do with that paycheck. And of course, I'm kidding. But your perception would be very positive. Now, let's play this scenario out a little bit more. Year number 2. Company has another good year. February comes around, meeting gets called, you go sit down, they pass out the envelopes. You got kind of an idea of what's in there. You open it up, check for 10% of your previous year's salary. Positive or negative? Positive, right? Is it as positive as it was the first year? For most people, probably not. So year number 3, same thing. Great year, go into the meeting, sit down, envelopes get passed out, open the envelope, check, 10%, positive or negative? Probably still, it's not negative, probably still, okay, but it's like, all right, well, now this has become routine. This has become an expectation. So now we get into year 4. And remember, this was never part of your original employment agreement. It's not part of your job contract. It's not anything. Year number 4, the company doesn't have quite such a good year. And so you get called into the meeting, and first week in February, you're all, everybody's smiling and everything, and they pass out the envelopes, and you open up the envelope, and the check is only for 5% of your previous year's salary. Positive or negative? In that simple little example right there, many, many people will say that's negative. Why? Because you've created an expectation. Your expectation has caused your perceptions to shift. So that check that for 10% in year 1 was like over the moon fantastic. Now, in year 4, when it's only 5%, they're screwing us. This darn company. And this is reality. This is the way the human mind works, unless you and I do something to counter that. Now, we're not all exactly the same. Some people would still say, well, 5%, they don't owe me anything, it's still positive. Most people, however, initially anyway, will feel that that's a negative. So, mindset's our mental amplifier. Perception is our mental filter. And once again, before I go down here, I want to remind you that my perception of reality is my reality. Your perception of reality is your reality. And this is where we tend to screw it up as influencers. Because if I want to influence this person, and their perception of reality is different than my perception of reality, and I come at it from the perspective that I'm right and they're wrong. Now think about some of the conversations, if you have teenagers at home, you've likely had with them. You are immediately going to initiate what's called a power struggle. And as soon as we get into power struggle space, what part of the brain do you think is going to kick in? We just got done talking about it, the lizard brain. The lizard brain is going to perceive this as a threat. Boom, you got 0 chance of influence. Our brains are wired to learn from experience. When we talked about how our brains are wired to make mistakes, because we make mistakes, we learn, we adjust. We make another mistake, we learn, we adjust. Well, over the course of our life, we have all these experiences happen, and these experiences over time are what influence our mindset and our perception. And remember, everything from the outside world has to pass through these before it even generates thoughts. These guys are incredibly important. So let's go over to the PowerPoint slide now, do a quick review, and we'll cap this part off. Okay, so this block down here we have labeled as personality, and we talked about role modeling, verbal conditioning, and specific events. And inside of this, we have mindset and perception. Now, remember what I told you about mindset. If you're in a generally negative mood, your brain is going to amplify, it's the mental amplifier, anything negative you can find, and it's going to be looking for negative stuff. And whatever you're looking for, you're generally going to find. That brings us to key insight number 14. What I focus upon expands. This is hugely important. And we'll be coming back to this when we talk in Module 7 about aligning behaviors out in the field. You go out there for looking what people are doing wrong, guess what you're going to find more of? What people are doing wrong. And in the grander scheme of things, that doesn't serve anything. Again, I'm jumping way ahead. We'll talk more about that when we get there. So go ahead and fill this in. Now on page 2, what I focus upon expands. Okay, so that's our amplifier. Perception is our mental filter. And as I mentioned earlier, perceptions are different. So here's a fun little exercise that you can do, and you can do it right now. Watch me do it, and then pause this and do it yourself. It'll kind of blow your mind. So What I want you to do is I want you to hold your finger above your head, and I want you to rotate it in a clockwise direction. Clockwise direction. Okay, now while you're continuing to rotate your finger in a clockwise direction, bring it down here and look at it from above. What direction is it rotating? Very interesting, isn't it? Clockwise direction, you bring it down here and it's going counterclockwise. Same rotation, same finger, different perception. All of this conspires to create your personality, and as we talked about before, my perception of reality is my reality, your perception of reality is your reality, and here's where we want to be really careful as influencers, because if I come at this from the perspective of I'm right and you're wrong, we immediately have a power struggle, the lizard brain kicks in, and we have no chance of influence. This brings us to the next key insight number 15. Different isn't wrong, it's just different. If you're finding these insights helpful, please share them with your friends and colleagues. Help your search engine find more content like this for you by hitting the like button before you leave. And if these PPI messages resonate with you, subscribe to this channel so you don't miss the next one. Until next time, my friend, be safe, stay humble, and make a difference.